So as I mentioned before, Thanksgiving Day is actually a nationally recognized holiday for many years here in the U.S. It starts out with a very sad background. It's in the context of a terrible civil war that happened here in the 1800s. And if I believe that I've heard the statistics correctly, more American blood was shed one side against the other in this civil war. Now, if you're from an African nation, in most African nations, you are very familiar, sadly, with the concept of civil war. They're terrible. Everybody suffers, everybody hurts. And it really puts people into a terrible state. And so it did with America. It caused literally brother against brother. So we had in America, it was the North and the South. And slavery was a big issue. It was a milestone in American life. And it was so distressing and so disturbing that our president at the time, Abraham Lincoln, and probably everybody around the world has heard of him. So that's why I mentioned this. And he called us wisely, whether he himself was a born-again Christian or not. I suppose scholars may have differing opinions on that, but he certainly was a God-fearing man, that's for sure. And he tells us, or he told us, this is a national proclamation back in 1863, I believe. And here is why this holiday was created. Of course, we've lost it in America today. But this is very important, to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father. That means loving, who dwells in the heavens. And I recommend to them, to the people of America, that while offering up the ascriptions justly due, we could say the praise, the honor, the recognition justly due to him for such singular deliverances and blessings. Here, President Lincoln refers back to the amazing miracle of the Revolutionary War, in which a bunch of ragtag farmers, by the hand of God, was able to overcome the British, which at that time, and most people around the world, they understand that the British were the foremost military force in the world at the time. So the simple fact that we were an independent nation by itself is just it was a miracle. So he said, let's give God the praise justly due for singular deliverances and blessings, with humble penitence for our national perverseness and disobedience. And again, people don't speak with this kind of eloquent language today, sadly, in our modern day politicians, but he recognized the institution of slavery as being inhumane. And so he called it a very interesting word, perverseness and disobedience. We commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged. President Lincoln, now this is not a history lesson, but he felt like there was no other way but to have war in order to preserve the Union. So that's what he's referring to here. Mourners or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged, and fervently, and this is really the point that we want to drive home today in our session, the president called the people to do this. It's very similar to the kings. If you read 2 Chronicles 20, for example, the kings of Israel, to fervently implore the interposition or the moving of the Almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation and to restore it as soon as may be consistent with the divine purposes, to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. Do you see that? That's really the outcome. So Thanksgiving Day, as it was initially proclaimed, was a day and a time to call on God. It wasn't a day and a time which we in Americans do, to eat too much, sadly, and we spend time with family as well. But the same needs are in your nation, wherever you're tuning in from. The same needs exist in and hopefully you're not in a civil war, but you've had disasters. You've had upheavals. You've had economic downturns. You've had all kinds of difficult situations. Well, it's the same thing. Organize a day of thanksgiving to the Lord. If you're in a really tough circumstance in your nation today, this is something you can do. You can organize a time of Thanksgiving and make it a time of fasting as well. On a future broadcast, perhaps with Dr. Backy, we will talk about fasting and the power of fasting and how fasting and prayer are important tools connected to each other. But I just wanted to show you that at least once upon a time in America, it was recognized on a national level that God is the source of our blessings, and we need to give him thanks.